There are a lot of parallels between Joseph, the son of Israel, and the snake from the Garden of Eden. So Joseph, who is famous because of the colourful coat that his father gives him, then his brothers throw him in a pit and then sell him to slavers, and then he goes to Egypt and gets imprisoned. There's this episode near the end of Genesis where Joseph gives advice to Pharaoh about a famine that's coming. Pharaoh's had some dreams and he doesn't know what's going on. And Joseph, he's in the prison, he's been unjustly imprisoned, and then he's brought into the palace of Pharaoh because Joseph is so wise and discerning. And these adjectives keep coming up with Joseph in this episode. He's wise and he's discerning. He has this quality. Now, earlier in Genesis, at the start of Genesis, Adam and Eve, they're living in the Garden of Eden. They're made in the image of God to have dominion over all the fish in the sea, all the birds of the air, and all the creatures on the land. They're made in the image of God, and in the ancient world, kings were associated with the image of God. They're representatives of the gods. So you can think of Adam and Eve as like a king and a queen. And you can think of Eden as the palace that they live in. Of course, really, Eden is God's temple and God's palace. But his images, his representatives who rule on his behalf are Adam and Eve. So it's kind of like they live in a palace, Eden. And the snake is called the craftiest of the beasts of the field. The snake is the most crafty. So he's from the field and he comes into the garden and he has this, I don't know if quality is the right word, but this adjective describing him, that he's crafty. Joseph is wise and discerning. The snake is crafty. The snake is smart. It's not the same thing as wisdom, but there's overlap between wisdom and shrewdness or craftiness. And the snake comes in to give advice to Adam and Eve. Joseph also, he's an outsider, he's not an Egyptian, and he's brought in to give advice to the king. The snake's advice leads to death, but Joseph's leads to life. And they're both giving advice on something that's actually kind of similar. They're both giving advice to royalty about what to do with food. God has given instruction to Adam and Eve, and he's given dreams to Pharaoh that Pharaoh doesn't understand. And they're both about food. So Adam and Eve are told, you can eat from any tree in the garden except one. And from that tree, don't eat its fruit, or you will surely die. So there's this abundance of food. You can eat loads of food, but there's this little bit of food that is set apart, and you should not eat it. And if you do, then you die. Now Pharaoh actually, he's in a similar situation. He's had these dreams that he doesn't understand, but Joseph explains them to him, and he says, you have 7 years of harvest coming, plentiful harvest. And then after that, 7 years of famine. So what you need to do is take 1/5 of the food in the 7 plentiful years and set it aside. Don't eat it. Don't allow anyone to eat it. You can eat 4/5, but you need to leave 1/5. Set it aside. And again, this set aside food, just like in the garden, it's a life or death situation. If Pharaoh allows it to be eaten, then in the 7 years of famine, his nation will die. The people he represents will die. But if he protects it and doesn't allow it to be eaten, then they'll live. They'll be saved from the famine. So Pharaoh's dream and the famine is like the garden test happening again. But this time, Joseph is like an anti-snake. And instead of bringing deception and doubt and death, he brings wisdom from God that leads to life. At the start of Genesis, the snake urges us to forsake God and die. But then towards the end of Genesis, Joseph urges us to receive wisdom from God and live. Joseph is like an anti-snake. We see the work of the snake is being undone. The snake's work is being undone when God reveals his wisdom. And when we receive it, we find life. We receive that wisdom and we find life. And then we urge others to receive that wisdom and they find life. And we become like agents of God's wisdom, agents of God's life, seeing the work being undone as God reveals himself through us, just like with Joseph. Ultimately, the wisdom of God is revealed in Jesus Christ crucified. Again, with Jesus on the cross, God gives us instructions about food. But this time it's take and eat and live, as Jesus offers his body to us to be our nourishment. He becomes food for us to eat and find life. He ends our banishment by coming close to us. He ends our famine by feeding us. He ends our death by entering it and conquering it. Receive Jesus and live. Feast on him through faith. We, like Joseph, can become wise and become agents of God's wisdom, urging people to receive Jesus and find life.